Lehman shut down in September 2008.
Yes. So essentially, I joined in June, and in 3 months later, I had to go home.
The same basic ingredient for cooking oil is also the basic ingredient for soap. Is that true?
Correct. So essentially, just to give you some chemistry about it,
No, don't bore me with the details. Like high level.
it is the people, it's the cleaner in your factory who has that $1 million idea, and you always never ask that person.
Today, we're going to take a peek through the peephole of a generational family businesses and see what makes family businesses tick. Our guest today is TruFoods CEO, Sagar Malde. Hi, Sagar. How are you?
Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for inviting me.
We are really happy to have you here and to hear your backstory of how you got to be a CEO at a young age. And maybe what we want to start with is your university life. Tell us, where did you go to university?
I went to the London School of Economics,
Okay.
Studied mathematics and economics,
Okay.
and graduated in 2008.
That was an interesting year. That was the year of the great financial crisis.
And I was in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I joined Lehman Brothers, the famous Lehman Brothers, in July 2008 as a graduate job.
Lehman shut down in September 2008.
Yes. So essentially, I joined in June, and in 3 months later, I had to go home.
So you were fired 3 months into your first job. But
Correct.
what was that scene like when they were saying we need to shut down? And this was Lehman London.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was Sunday. I think it was 14th of September. 15th is when we went to work. Or it was 5th. I don't know. Which
One of
date.
the days.
Yeah.
No worries.
So 14th of, or it was the Sunday before, news came out, Lehman Brothers is actually gone. So essentially, I was confused what needs to be done now. Do I need to
Because
go
you're
to
sitting at
work
home.
on Monday?
Yeah, exactly. So you're sitting at home on Sunday watching CNN or something that's saying Lehman Brothers has essentially been shut down by the US government. Yeah.
And so on Monday, we still went to work because we were part of the graduates and we all decided, let's go to work. As soon as we entered, I mean, my work used to start at 6:30 in the morning. So we were there at 6:30. 7 o'clock, we were called into a meeting. And in that meeting, we were said that we're now jobless and we can go home whenever we feel like. So on that day, went on my desk, picked up all my stuff, which I had just, set up, and started to walk out. And when we walked out, it's funny enough, I mean, I'm not used to all of this. There was journalists all over outside the Lehman building.
And what's
And
the
we
mood
were-
like amongst the staff?
I mean, everybody was confused. Some people, well, I think the experienced people were not so worried because, of course, they had experience, they knew what could be done, they had the context to do whatever they wanted. Whereas people like us who just started the job, we were confused. We were like, what's next for us? I mean, we've worked so hard. Yeah. So in 2007, I'd actually secured a job for 2008. So we did an internship, a 10-week internship. And thereafter, you get confirmed if you have performed well into a job. So I was lucky enough to get confirmed into 2008 graduate job. Essentially started 3 months later, had to look for another job again. And of course, the job market was not so great in the financial crisis. So looking for a job for a graduate is not the easiest job, however good your CV may be.
Yeah.
So my journey actually started when, I would actually call it, my journey started actually when Lehman fell. And that's what I can say, who I am is because of Lehman falling.
So you're saying that who you are is because of Lehman collapsing. That's a very that's an oxymoronic statement.
So the reason why I actually say the reason why my journey or who I am is because of Lehman falling is because hard times actually always teach you the most. Yeah. And that was a hard time. And I had to become, as I said, it was an easy time for me to get a graduate job. And now I was back in the field of trying to compete with others to get a graduate job. So I had to do certain things which I wouldn't have done if Lehman did not fall. For example, I enrolled myself into studying CFA, which is the Chartered Financial Analyst. So that's a qualification I've got now.
That's a very hard qualification to get.
Yes, it takes about 4 years to get, 3 level of exams, and then of course 4 years of work experience, the right work experience.
Wow.
And then of course the second thing actually that made me who I am is looking for the right role for myself. And the next two roles that I got after that is what has shaped me to where I am now. Right. And the reason I say that is because I studied mathematics and economics, and I went into equities trading, into modeling, financial modeling.
I was not seeing you on a catwalk, Sagar.
I went into financial modeling,
Yeah.
Of course, and that's what has really helped me to where I am now. So that's
where
the
did you
two
do
reasons.
that? Where did you do that financial modeling and the?
So it was just learning on the job.
So where did you
essentially.
get to work? So you left Lehman Brothers, started your CFA. I want to believe you were doing your CFA at the same time as working. So did you get another job?
Yes. So the first job then after maybe about 2 months later, I got a job in a hedge fund. So my journey has been into hedge funds after. I
Okay.
didn't go back into the investment bank. I went into a hedge fund. The first one, both were equity trading houses. One was more of a tech trading house, which worked on algorithms. And the second was more on the fundamental side, where we need to do financial modeling in order for the equities to understand which equities to invest in and which equities not to invest in.
So you like math.
Love math.
You like just working with Excel spreadsheets. Because every time I see you, Sagar, you're always with a spreadsheet. What's
I
that
mean,
about?
Okay, so for me, I always feel, I love math. Math is what ticks me. But I think every company, for it to be successful, math, numbers is the game, right?
Yeah.
And I think, of course, where I sit now, my experience in doing the CFA, which gave me the accounting background and financial background, at the same time, the financial modeling, which helped me in the mathematics side of things.
Yes.
So both of them combined, actually, I feel makes somebody to be at the helm of any company, because those are two critical things a CEO needs.
So what makes you then come back? So you've got these two jobs in London. You've got a family business. Your family is involved in business in Kenya.
Correct.
So do they say, hey, Sagar, come home, we need you? Or do you decide, all right, I'm done with London, let me come home?
So essentially, it was a hard discussion. I was 6 years into my roles in the UK, and one day I got a call to come back to Kenya and join the family business. I was not ready. Then it took me a year before I started thinking about it, and maybe thought that maybe being next to family is something I want to be. And then I started thinking about that, and finally, after a few conversations with the family, I decided that I will move back. And I gave myself 3 years for that. If I did not enjoy, I would actually move back within 3 years.
So this ultimatum is in your head. You've not spoken to your dad about it. You're just very clear that I'm just coming in. Dad, you've pressured me. 1 year in, you're thinking about this for about a year. Pack your bags and come to Kenya.
Yeah.
So what's a family business by this time? What's a family doing?
So in Kenya, we've got multiple businesses.
Yeah.
And essentially, one of the businesses is Pwani Oil products. Second is TruFoods. And third is recently acquired Kartasi Industries.
Tell us, what does Pwani Oil do?
Pwani Oil Products is a manufacturing unit,
Yeah.
manufacturing edible oils, laundry soaps, bar soaps, bathing soaps, and many other. We're also venturing into cosmetics now.
Not many people know that the same basic ingredient for cooking oil is also the basic ingredient for soap. Is that true?
Correct.
So you always find somebody who's doing cooking oil will ordinarily also do soap.
Soap, yeah. So essentially, just to give you some chemistry about it.
No, don't bore me with the details. Like high level. Sagar,
Yeah.
I'm thick as two planks in math and 10 times worse in chemistry. So at a very high level.
Yeah. So crude palm oil is refined, and you get two things. One is the refined bleached deodorized oil,
Okay.
and you get PFAD, which is palm fatty acid distillate.
Okay.
The palm fatty acid distillate goes into soap.
Okay.
The RBD, which is the refined bleaching deodorized oil, is then fractionated, and you get olein, which is your oil, cooking oil, and you get stearine.
Okay.
Stearine mixed with PFAD gives you your soap.
Okay.
So essentially, you're using the full crude palm oil to do oil and
So
soap.
there's
And
no waste essentially.
there is essentially no
Okay.
waste. Yeah.
So they're doing this at the coast.
Yes.
Uh-huh. So, do
So-
you come back and do that? Do you go into Pwani Oil, or what do you do?
So when I joined in 2014 in Kenya, I joined Pwani Oil.
Yeah.
I joined in the finance department where I was handling treasury, and I was working on analytics. So data analytics, where we were looking at how maybe to improve customer profitability, how to improve our own profitability in different ways, and how to develop business within
Yeah.
Kenya.
Yeah.
And so that is what I was responsible for, and I worked there for 4 years.
This is now at the coast.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm actually born and brought up in Coast.
Okay.
So I was home,
Okay.
essentially.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. And then 4 years later, an opportunity came. So we've got a business in Uganda, acquired it, and it wasn't doing so well.
What was the business?
Again, it's in the same edible oil and cooking and soap
Yeah.
business. It's called veg oil in Uganda, and it wasn't doing so well. So I took up the challenge and I said, why don't I go there and I turn this business around, or try to turn this business around. So in 2018 September,
How old are you by this time?
I'm 32 at
Yeah.
that time, and I took the decision of taking the challenge
Yeah.
and going there and seeing how I can turn this business around.
Yeah.
Uganda, nobody in my family has lived in Uganda. We don't know the market.
That's right.
I mean, nothing. So essentially, we went there. I went there with my wife. I was just married 1 year, so it was also a great experience for both of us
Yeah.
there. And in 3 years, I feel the achievement that I got from Uganda not only made me who I am today also,
Yeah.
but also it helped me to understand how you need so many different skills to run a business, essentially.
So what did you achieve in Uganda? So you go, you find a loss-making business.
Yes. So loss-making business, really not doing much. We were not even producing even in a month, maybe 10 days, hardly producing. And then, of course, went into Uganda. The first things that I worked on is internally
Yeah.
to get the house in order.
Okay.
And then after that, went out into the market, saw what opportunities there are, and tried to recruit customers.
Okay.
And that's how the journey started in Uganda. I was there for 3 years. In 1.5 years, we became in the market from number 7 to number 3, and brought in profitability into the company. By the time on the 3rd year when I left, I broke the business even from the losses that we had incurred previously.
So you actually wiped out all the losses, got it now back to so you recovered all the losses that had been made.
Correct.
So you said you put the house in order. What does that look like? So for somebody who's watching and is like, all right, clearly Sagar is a turnaround artist. How do I turn around my business? Without going too much into the detail, what required the turnaround? This is a new market, Sagar. You have no friends, you don't know the customers, you don't know the staff. So how do you claw back?
So first things first, of course, the Ugandan culture is not the same as the Kenyan
100%,
culture also.
yeah.
So I needed to understand the culture. So the first 6 months in any business, it's all about understanding the people, who they are, what do they do, what they like, how do they need to be approached, and understanding exactly what needs to be done in that company. So 6 months it took me to understand all of that. And then, of course, in the same time, I was also understanding what I needed to do in the company itself.
Yeah.
So I started making the small changes. And as we all know, the human side of any business is a very sensitive
Yes.
part. And it was one part where I felt in the business in Uganda, it was not really well handled previously.
The people side.
The people side.
Okay.
So it was my first thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to build a culture in the company where people felt that they own the business. It is when the people are happy, passionate about the job is when they will deliver. And they will deliver beyond even just being a family member or being part of the owner of the company. And that's the thing that I wanted to build in that company.
So those are the people on the factory floor, the sales and marketing team,
Yeah,
the
full.
finance team.
Full.
Wow.
So I had to bring in a lot of different changes. We started cutting birthday cakes. We started having team gatherings. We had prayers. We had a lot of different things. I used to involve all the staff in order to see what is it that we need to do to turn this company around. And sometimes you will be shocked. It is the people, it's the cleaner in your factory who has that $1 million idea. And you always never ask that person what needs to be done. And that's where I learned that it is never discount anybody who's working for you. Respect each and every person.
So 3 years in, you decide to come back home. They must have been very sad to see you go.
No, so actually it was a transition from Uganda. On the other side also, TruFoods, it was having its fair share of problems also. And I thought it's my time now to maybe go to another company, which is probably a bigger challenge because of its name, brand equity that it is in the market, and see how we can transform that business again.
So let's talk about, so Pwani Oil, if I go into a supermarket, what product will I see for Pwani Oil?
Fresh fry
Fresh fry.
and whitewash or ushindi soap.
Or Ushindi soap, right?
Yes.
Ushindi used to be Unilever, didn't it?
Yes, so we acquired it a few years ago, the brand name.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Does it make a difference from growing your own brand name and buying an existing brand name in terms of market penetration?
It does and it does not. I mean, once you buy a brand name, you definitely have to work around it also because the market knows where it is and where it has gone to now. I mean, and of course we need to maintain quality. We need to maintain the same marketing that Unilever used to do probably. And you need to keep making sure that the brand name is in people's mind because as we all know, when a brand is not in the market, people forget about it. People move on.
Are you allowed to say, is there a secret ingredient in the Ushindi that's not in like one of the other soaps? So when you buy the brand name, do you buy the ingredients that make up Ushindi or sort of, is bar soap bar soap? I know you may or may not say it.
What I can say, a bar soap is not always a bar soap.
Okay.
Yes, quality does matter.
Yeah.
So Ushindi has its own advantage, formulation, which is different to all the other class of bar soaps that we have also.
I see. So you have to, when you buy the brand, you have to buy that formulation as well because it's a promise to the client.
Exactly.
I see.
Yeah, and for us and all our companies that we have or we deal in, we always, one thing that we always maintain is quality. Without quality, however cheap the product may be or expensive the product may be, when the quality is not right, the people will not buy it, whether it is cheap or expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to maintain quality.
Okay.
And that's something we take very, very, very important in our business.
So you come back to TruFoods. So let's talk a little bit about TruFoods. Has the TruFoods business always been in the family or was it an acquisition? How did TruFoods come into the business?
So TruFoods was actually started by Dr. Jayanti Lal Shah.
Yeah.
He was a food scientist.
Yep.
Essentially probably the first food scientist in Kenya maybe at that time. And he started this company called TruFoods.
In what year?
In 1958.
Okay.
I mean, TruFoods has been in existence since 1928. It was called Pure Foods. And in 1958, it transformed itself into TruFoods. And essentially when it started, it was actually manufacturing for the multinationals. It was manufacturing food products for multinationals.
What kind of food products?
So it was making the jams, the sauces, and tomato paste. And essentially the way it started was the multinationals had a contract with the defense forces.
Okay.
I mean, the UK, the British forces, and they needed to buy goods, I mean, food products for their army in Kenya at that time because it was pre-independence. And that's how TruFoods was formed, where they used to manufacture goods for the army to be consumed here.
Okay.
And then after independence, a lot of things changed,
Yeah.
where he started making the brand, making the food under the brand of called Zesta, which we all consume today.
Okay.
Doing jam, sauces, cannellon tomato paste. And then, of course, since then, we acquired, after Dr. Jayantilal Shah passed away in 2003, we acquired the business. Our family bought the business in 2003, and since then we've taken it to a whole new level after that.
What does a whole new level look like? So by the time you acquire it, you have cannellon and Zesta.
Correct. So essentially, when we acquired it, of course, we took a few years. We understood the market. We innovated new products
What
in
does
the line.
understanding the market sound like, look like, feel like?
So it was new. I mean, food industry, we needed to know formulations. We're coming from an oil background. So coming into food is completely different. And we're not food scientists in our family. So we needed to learn what are the ingredients, what it is that is required to go into the raw materials of any of these products, so that we do not change the formulation or the taste of Zesta.
And are they originally sourced in Kenya, the raw materials?
Fully. In fact, one of our things that we actually do and we support is our farmers in Kenya. We get all our red plum, which is our main ingredient in most of our stuff, from Kenya. And actually, those farmers that we buy from are multi-generational now. So their grandfathers were actually supplying TruFoods. And now their sons and their sons' sons are actually still farmers and still supplying to TruFoods.
Okay, all right.
So the attachment of farmers to TruFoods is quite high. And that's a relationship we keep fostering, nurturing, growing by educating them with our agronomists on the ground with different ways of, how improving yield in the agriculture space. What are the things that needs to be done in order to ensure that we don't have a produce that is actually thrown away due to disease. So small things are some things that we have
Where
regular.
are your farmers? In Limuru, where are
So
plums?
Limuru, we've got it within the north, the highlands area of Eldoret. That's where the red plums come from, a very cold region. So they need very cold weather for them to do well.
Yeah.
We also buy fruits such as guavas, pears, maize, white maize, sweet corn, tomatoes from Kenya. So from all of this is actually sourced from Kenya.
It's interesting.
And of course also groundnuts fit for our peanut butter. A misconception I think a lot of Kenyans or anyone has, that local manufacturing always uses more chemicals comparatively to organic. And I can say that for sure that TruFoods, we do not, we take quality very seriously, and of course the health of people very seriously, and we do not use, or we use organic food in all our produce. So if you come to our factory, we'll have all the pulps and we use produce. We try to use everything that is natural for your body. Even colors into any product, we use natural colors and not synthetic.
And are you able to source, so you can say this batch that you produced this year of this red plum jam that was produced in January 2024, are you able to source back to the farm where the plums came from?
So we can actually source from which area the plums came from to the finished good. So we have all the documentation in place. If somebody complains, we have the sample in our, of course, factory. And at the same time, we are able to see where is the issue. Is it the plum? Was it the process? Or was it the handling at our warehouse or at the customer place?
So how many years had the family owned TruFoods before you entered the picture?
So I entered in 2021.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So before that, I guess it was about 18 years.
Okay.
The family has owned TruFoods and built.
All right.
Yeah.
So Sagar, you take over as CEO in 2021 at TruFoods. What's that been like? What have you done differently? What lessons from Uganda have you brought into TruFoods?
I mean, first and foremost, I think from 2021, when I joined TruFoods, the first thing that I worked on was the culture of the company. When I joined, I had a similar issue what I had in Uganda. So, of course, my experience from Uganda is something that I brought in. There's three things that I work with, three main fundamentals. One, discipline. Number two, hard work. And number three, integrity. If these three things are things that I instill into my people, I will get what I want.
Okay.
And that's what I started working on
Okay.
when I joined TruFoods.
Okay.
And then, of course, worked on, again, internal. I always try to say, before I go to the customers or externally, I need to fix the house internally. Because if the house is not fixed internally, going externally makes no sense, or it is a waste of time. So I started working on things on improving efficiency operationally wise within all the procedures that we do within. I changed the pricing structure. Essentially, I turned around everything. And we've got customers who've been with TruFoods for more than 30 years. And when they saw Saga come in, they found, who's this young guy who's coming? He's going to spoil business. And initially, people were very reluctant. They were like, who is this guy? He's going to spoil. You know how people have this perception where kids come into businesses and they kind of come and spoil the whole business, and they don't care about relationships that were 30 years strong. And essentially, we had to make hard decisions. And I'm so grateful at the fact that my family gave me the support that do what you're doing, and we support you fully. And it is only through that I'm able to achieve where I am today, because they had the full support.
But they only supported you because you had a track record. Would you say that? Because you had a track record of a successful turnaround in Uganda.
Yes. I think it is very important because of that track record, that respect from the family came through. And probably they also understood the fact that let these hard decisions be made for the company to turn around, and we see how it goes.
Okay.
And today, 3 years later, I sit here and I can proudly say that TruFoods has actually not only just improved market share within Kenya, but we're now also within East Africa in a good scale.
So what goods am I? If I go into a supermarket, so Pwani Oil, you told me I'll find fresh fry and Ushindi soap. So what are the TruFoods products that I'm going to find in the market?
So a household name, Zesta. So everything that is Zesta. So we're in the jams, sauces, peanut butter. We do powders, so bicarbonates, your baking powder, custard powder, and all of that. In addition to that, we do cannellon tomato paste, your cannellon veggies, so like your beans and tomato sauce, your sweet corn, chickpeas, butter beans. That.
Those are the canned ones. I've even seen canned githeri.
Yeah, canned githeri is ours, yes.
Are those movers? Do people buy canned githeri?
Not in Kenya, but we export it for Kenyans in America, London, Australia. So it goes to other parts of the world. Although people do buy within, but not as high as the export market.
As the export market?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, we do drinking chocolate in the name of Choco Primo. And we do biscuits under the name of Golden Biscuits.
So these are the ones that we find in the packets, in the big cartons.
Yeah, so the big jars.
Yes.
We do digestives.
Yes.
We do cookies. We do the loose pieces, the ones you get onto the kiosks.
Yes.
And of course, the gingers and the digestives. And
what would you say is your signature product? What's the one that makes you go, makes you feel really, really happy when you...
Okay, of course, the Zesta jams. Everybody knows, and actually nobody knows TruFoods, but they know Zesta, essentially. So Zesta jams is something, but I'm really, really fond of one product. Well, many, but there is two products that I'm really fond of.
Yeah.
Since I joined TruFoods and I've grown them quite a lot, is firstly our drinking chocolate, Choco Primo.
Yeah.
And since I joined, of course, we've tried to get into the market share and improved it. But at the same time, we've also introduced a new product which takes care of the new generation who are looking for veganism, who are vegans in the market. And essentially, we have a 3-in-1 drinking chocolate, which is the cocoa powder, the creamer, which is a non-dairy creamer, and sugar. Essentially, all you need to do is, it's called chocolate burst in the market. So all you do, 2 scoops into the cup, hot water, and voila, you're
Is it your
drinking
favorite
chocolate.
product because you produced it when it was launched during your time? Was it that you really like it? It's a fast moving good.
Both, but
Okay.
actually it came out during COVID.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So we launched it during COVID, when things were really not doing so well in the economy. And there's 2 products that we launched during COVID. One is this one, and the second one is the non-sugar added jams. And in the non-sugar added jams, what we did because of COVID, we added zinc to improve our immunity.
Zinc.
Zinc.
All right.
And essentially, it's a product for all the diabetics or people who don't like to eat sugar in the economy. And it's a product which is not there in Kenya yet. We are the first ones to launch a no sugar added jam in Kenya,
And
a local product.
how's it moving?
It's moving very well. Actually, in Kenya, it's doing well. But to my surprise, the export market is doing very well with it.
Who are you exporting to?
So the likes of Uganda, Rwanda, Congo, doing exceptionally well in this. And I was surprised to learn that that people in Uganda are so health conscious, despite if you look at Kenya versus Uganda, I believe Kenyans has a higher middle class than the Ugandans. So quite a big wake up call that you need to learn the market. Sometimes the markets can be very different demographically, but can work very differently for different products.
And this is the interesting thing about FMCG. You go thinking that the market will like this product, but they actually like this other product because customers use your product to do a job. Has that been your experience as a CEO of TruFoods? You go out, you want to experiment. Do you do a lot of innovation? Do you get surprised when it gets out into the market?
Yes, I mean, we are constantly innovating. We have a department which is constantly innovating. Like today, if I may say, I have 10 different items sitting waiting for me to launch in the market.
Food products.
Food products, yes. So recently we just launched tomato paste in sachets. I know it has been in the market for a while, not ours, but
Yes.
the competition. And we didn't get it right. So I wanted to get it right before we
the
launched.
taste or what?
So from packaging to keeping the taste good
Okay.
within the sachets. And I'll tell you an interesting fact about tomato paste. The tomato paste we actually import from whichever country we do is actually not tomato paste in the market. It's mixed with a lot of additives. And for cannellon, like I mentioned before, for quality, we are it's very critical to us. And so we make sure that our cannellon paste is our cannellon paste is fully tomatoes in it. And the reason why cannellon paste is the leader in the market today is because of the quality, comparatively. So what we wanted to get right in the sachets was to get that quality right, which can stay for the period of time on the shelf in that packaging material, because packaging materials really play a big part. And at the same time, we wanted to not only just play on making sure the shelf life on that packaging material was good, we wanted to contribute to the environment. So we wanted to find something which was environmentally more friendlier than the normal. And so that's the reason why a lot of our research now goes into how to keep things very organic, and at the same time, how can we reduce our plastic footprint in the market?
So the paper is not plastic; it's biodegradable. One that you use.
Paper is biodegradable, but the laminate has a plastic coating, and then of course also aluminium because of the acidic nature of tomato paste.
I see. And do you source the tomatoes from Kenya?
Yes, we have our farmers within, so we get it. Of course, tomatoes grow in the hotter part of Kenya.
Yeah.
So Taveta and the likes. So most of our tomatoes are from All the tomatoes are from Kenya.
So within TruFoods, and clearly you must have a team that just looks after farmers, the agricultural extension. So you've got your tomatoes, you've got your plum farmers. What's been your challenge with the farming industry?
So I think two challenges in the farming. Like I mentioned, we have a multi-generational farmer relationship.
Yeah.
So what's happening in that part is the grandfathers start when they pass away, they give their land and it's subdivided to their kids, which is further subdivided to their kids.
So the farms are becoming
Becoming
smaller
and
smaller.
smaller. And essentially what's happening is most of these children don't know the importance of having a red plum tree. So what they do is they cut the red plum tree and they grow other things which will give them better yield for whatever they grow. So maybe maize, maybe beans, etc., etc. So what we're getting now is we're getting a reduced amount of yield for our red plums. The amount that we are getting, which we were getting previously, has actually dramatically reduced because of this cutting of or sharing of the lands. And essentially, at the end of come the next generation, maybe in 10 or 20 years, we may be at a point where we are getting half of what we are getting today.
Wow. And how many tons are you getting today?
So today we get around between 1,200 to 1,500 tons
Per
a
annum.
year. Yeah. And there is only one season of red plums, which is in December, January in the year.
So so how long does it take to get a tree to maturity level where it's generating plums?
About 5 years.
Wow. And because what I hear, when people talk about tree planting, I'm a tree planter myself, is macadamia and avocados are the sort of hot potatoes. I've never heard anyone saying, I'm going to go and plant a red plum tree.
Yeah.
So is it that they not be able to generate as much profit from a red plum tree than they can from a macadamia or avocado tree? Is it that there's only one or two buyers in Kenya?
See, the difference between a macadamia or avocado tree, there is a big export market for that. Comparatively to red plum. Red plum is not a big export market for Kenya. And we are the largest user or buyer of red plums. If I look at the market, we buy, as I say, 1,200 to 1,500 tons a month. The competitors, 10% of that maybe is what. So essentially, I think what the farmers are looking at is, because of course the export market pays better than the local.
Yeah.
And so there is a shift that is happening in that, in terms of what to grow and what not to grow, which is affecting, of course, the local manufacturers like us. So what we are trying to do is firstly educate the farmers, and secondly, we want to look at how we can probably go into different places and start growing the red plum trees ourselves, so that we do not get affected maybe 10 or 20 years down the line with the same issue that I'm talking about today.
How many plum trees per acre?
Oof.
Many? No, you don't know?
No, I don't know.
But the chances are, what I'm hearing you saying though, is if things continue the way they continue, you'll probably have to start growing them yourself or importing.
Importing may be difficult. Not many countries grow plums. I mean, Egypt, and it will not make sense for us to import because then the cost of jam will go high.
Yes.
And essentially in Kenya, if you look at it, red plum is your biggest consumption in terms of jam. Importation will not work for us.
Other fruits, but there are other fruits in Kenya that we could make jam from, no? Guava.
But red plum is red plum. A red plum jam, we do not add any other fruits. It's red plum.
And that's your most popular?
And that's the most popular. And then comes mixed fruit, which has all these different types of fruit.
Yes.
But our mother is the red plum.
Okay.
So we cannot survive without our mother.
Okay.
And so we need to make sure that we start working on a solution now to ensure that we have supply going at least in the next 30 years.
All right. So let's shift a little bit. So you've been CEO 3 years. You've got the family business. From a governance perspective, how does that work? First of all, does Sagar see his son, if his son comes through, or his daughter, being in the family business in the next 30 years? Is your cousins in the business? What does governance look like for the future?
So for myself, I mean, it would be good if the kids would come. But now, the way I look at it and the way I would have wanted it to be is I want to give them a free choice of uh, in terms of career. Whatever they want to do, I will fully support. Whether they want to come in or go and do whatever they want anywhere else. My job is to actually give them opportunities, and that's what I will try to do.
So
I'll give
is-
them opportunities to what they want.
So your children, so you want to give your opportunities to your children to do what they want to do. Right now, you and at the family level, you have a board that manages at a group company.
Correct.
So do you have any external directors, or is it just made up of family members?
So we have external family non-execs
Yes.
in the board.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. And essentially at the board level, we're always talking about how, of course, we talk about operational and how the business is doing. But most of our conversations revolve around how to be transformational and how to actually transform the business. Because today, with the dynamism of the market and everything that's ongoing, a company needs to be dynamic, and we need to keep doing and innovating products and giving back to what the consumer needs rather than being static at whatever it was. And today I can say TruFoods is where it is because of its innovative, dynamic nature that it
right.
is at.
Let's switch gears a little bit. Talking of gears, you once drove all the way down to South Africa. Why? You just went on a trip. Could you talk about that road trip?
So, so in 2011, so whilst I was still in UK, between the two jobs, the two hedge funds, I always wanted to, what fascinates me is Africa. And I think Africa has such unparalleled beauty from across, from comparative to the whole world. And I love animals. So I wanted to always go and see how Africa is. And so I had somebody who had done it before, and it actually gave me that perspective. Why don't I go and do it? And I went alone by myself.
You got into a car and drove alone?
No, I didn't go in a car. I went on an overland truck.
Oh, you went in the overland truck with total strangers?
Yes.
You just went and signed up and said, yo, I hear you guys go down to South Africa. Can I join?
Yes.
Packed your stuff into a backpack
Yep.
and went?
Yeah.
Okay. What was that like?
I mean, it was nerve-wracking at first. I was like, I don't know anybody. I don't know what it's going to be like. My parents were like, you're going to camp? You want to do camping? And I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to see what it is. And Carol, let me tell you, that trip, 3 months trip, it just changed my perspective of life. It changed who I am, how I deal with people, how I talk to people, how I look at life. It opened me up. And at the same time, the people who I met in that journey, those people, and just learning about their life stories and what they do, some of them are global travelers, and that's what they do. They take a year out, they go traveling. They go traveling all across the world. And just listening to them and their life stories, I mean, it's fascinating. You don't get that in this finance world, in this corporate world.
So let's take a step back here. So you sign up. I'm going to go on this journey. How many months do they tell you it'll take you to get to, where do you go, to Johannesburg?
3 months, yeah.
They tell you it'll take, is it 3 months
Cape
round
Town.
to Cape Town?
Cape Town.
It'll take 3 months to Cape Town, or 1.5 and then 1.5 back?
No, so 3 months down,
Yes.
and then I flew back.
So for 3 months, 90 nights, you're sleeping with these total strangers. So you camp, you
Yes.
sleep out in the elements.
Yeah.
So they carry water, they carry food.
Yeah, no, so we have an overland truck. So wherever we go, before we camp, we go to a supermarket, we buy all our essentials, and then lunch.
So they know where the campsites are.
Yeah, they know
so
where
they
the
set up
campsite-
the tents.
No, we set up everything. So
It's hardship. This is not the soft life.
No,
It's
no.
hardship from the beginning.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's somebody who's adventurous, who loves to do it, and probably sleep in places where, I mean, it's not luxury, right? So you go to a washroom, you go to brush your teeth in places where they may not be in a basin. You have to just brush your teeth in water with drinking water, just on the on the grass next to your tent. So yeah, I mean, I loved it because you could connect let's be honest. I mean, Africa, 70% of Africa lives like that, doesn't it? And I wanted to understand exactly what is it that these guys, so connecting with them and understanding what is
With
their
who now?
life
The
like.
people in the bus, the people in the overland truck, or the people on the ground?
No, on the ground.
Okay.
I mean, because of course you're camping. When you're camping, sometimes you're living in places which is not just a campsite, but there are people who live in these kind of. It's surrounded by slums and stuff. So you're sleeping in some places where it's in the middle of nowhere, and you have all these very native indigenous tribes that you.
Tell us
did-
which countries. So where do you
So
start? So
we
you leave
we started
Nairobi.
with so we started with Nairobi, then we went into Uganda, Rwanda, into Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and then South Africa. And the landscapes that keep changing, I mean, if anybody has the chance or you have your kids to go for this, please do it. It changes everything, the way you look at Africa and the way you look at just life. It
In
totally
what
changes
way?
you.
In what way?
I mean,
Because you've grown up in Kenya, you've grown up at the coast.
Yes.
What was different? What were you exposed to that was different in this?
so of course, whilst I'm staying with my parents in the
Yes.
coast, we have all the luxuries, right?
Yes.
You have a home or shelter,
Yeah.
clothing,
Yeah.
education, friends,
Comfort.
everything, comfort. And then you go to this trip, and then you see when you're going past and you go to all this. So on the way, we did a lot of charity stuff as well. So we went and painted a school, for example. We did a charity in terms of going and teaching schools. We gave out stuff. We bought some stuff from supermarkets and give out. We went to a home, an orphanage, gave out stuff. Of course, at the same time, went into national parks. So we did a lot of variety of different things. And when I say it changes perspective in life, it's not always the luxuries that you need in life to do what it is, to go where you want to go. You need to understand how people live, how they adapt to different situations, and the challenges and how they solve those challenges, because it's very important in this world today. I mean, we sit on a very comfortable chair. You get all these challenges of the world that we are trying to make such big decisions about. But understand this, where do you learn this from and how to solve these problems? When you're a small person, when you're young, you learn these things by understanding what are the problems that these families go through and how they are solving these problems with a smile. That learning, today, I take it on my desk as a CEO, and that's how I solve my problems. Because no problem is as big as their problem. They're fighting for their life. Their daily wage, they're surviving on a daily wage. What more hard can it be?
Yeah.
They don't even know tomorrow whether they'll have food on their plate or not. And that's what made me understand that, you've got all the luxuries. Please don't worry about so many things in life. Do good to people, and that's what you'll be remembered for.
Sagar. So our last three questions, we're getting to know Sagar, the man, the myth, the legend. What's your top local food when you want to have Kenyan food? And I know you're vegetarian, or
vegetarian, yeah.
so that's going to be really tempered because Kenyans eat a lot of meat to some extent. So when you want to get a really good Kenyan experience, where do you go?
So actually, I make so whenever we have our management meetings at TruFoods, I'll change the whole menu. I make sure that we have ugali and terere. I love it. I love that.
Oh yeah?
And then to answer your question, where I go,
Yeah.
I have a place in Coast, which I love, Porini. I'm not sure if you've
I
been
know
there.
Porini. It's an old restaurant.
Yeah, old.
I went to Porini when I was maybe 13 years old, and I'll never forget. The reason I remember this restaurant, if they're watching, but we ordered the food at 1 and it came at about 4 p.m.
Yeah,
It was
that's
the
the
worst
problem that
experience. It
Porini
was very
has.
good, but it was like they went to the market to buy the
Yeah,
potatoes.
that's how it is. But what we do, and we've understood it, we kind of call them earlier.
Is
and
there a
we tell
reason
them-
why they're so slow?
I have no clue. Maybe it's just the coast vibe.
Huh?
But they have that issue. But the food, love. I mean, I've converted my wife to loving Swahili food. So,
Oh yeah?
yeah.
And they've got good vegetarian Swahili
Yeah.
food.
I mean,
What's your favorite item on the menu?
chapatis with garlic sauce and maragwe. I love it.
Really?
So,
Now you're from the coast, so what's your top ground? You know, when people want to get away from it all. So, you know, coast is home. Most people say, I want to go to the coast. We've had people say Watamu, we've had others say Diani, Galu. When you want to get away from it all, where do you go?
I've been born in coast.
Yeah.
So whenever I had issues, look, I felt like, I need a break. Walk on the beach is my go-to. So anywhere in the world which has a beach, and I want to go away, because what actually relaxes me is the sound of waves. So just sitting there watching doesn't mean I have to walk or do anything. Just be by myself, hear the sound of water essentially, waves, fountain, whatever it might be. That's what calms me, and that's what I look for.
Thank you very much, Sagar, for joining us on this Nitpicker podcast. There you heard it from Sagar Malde, CEO of TruFoods Kenya and a big believer in Buy Kenya, Build Kenya. So make sure the next time you're at the supermarket and you're looking for locally produced goods with traceability all the way to generational farms, pick up your Zesta jam or your Zesta products. This has been another episode of the Nitpicker podcast, and we look forward to welcoming you on the next session.